Joan Olivia. Joan Scaria.
Here, alternate Samantha Maroney on behalf of Joanne Scaria.
Fadi Nazar.
Here.
Ryan Mugridge.
Sergeant Yoder is here for Brian Mugridge.
J.C. Berry. David Willick.
Here.
Jean Matthews.
Casey Prankin here on behalf of Jean Matthews.
Bruce Guyton.
Not working.
Elijah Brown is here. Michael Owens. Christian Santa Gonzalez.
Here.
Jermaine Swaby.
Here.
Eliza Hanson. Missy Barletto. Tracy Phelps.
Here.
Stephanie Thoborn.
Here.
Claudette De Los Santos. We have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, the following members are requesting VSAC permission to participate remotely. Joan Olivia due to a scheduling conflict. Michael Owens due to ongoing staffing shortages at Palm Beach County School District.
Are there any objections to allowing the VSAC members to participate remotely? Seeing none, these members are approved to participate remotely, and please note their attendance in the minutes. Moving on to the minutes for September 7th, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes? I wasn't there, so if not, can I get a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to approve, David,
I'll second the motion.
Christian, seconded by Christian, and good morning, JC. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion, minutes approved. So we have general public comments and comments from the public on agenda items. Instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. Staff, are there any general comments that we received?
No, Madam Chair, but for the record, J.C. Berry joined the meeting at 9:05 a.m.
Thank you. Okay, next item is comments from the board. Are there any comments? Did anybody have any comments? Observations, listen to NPR this morning like Matthew and I did. One thing that I found very interesting is that since our last meeting, the Bright Line is now running from all the way to Orlando. And so for us in Jupiter to see passenger rail has been a real eye opener, and not just from, on many levels, but one is that I'm much more aware and noticing how people use that right of way, because those trains are they're a little bit faster in general than the freight, but they're going a little bit slower where I am. So they're really moving. And so thinking about vehicular safety and how you approach that and making sure you can make it, and having those types of, thoughts and understandings, while also being in awe that we can actually travel more than half of Florida on a train that doesn't take you 12 hours to get there. Cause that's what I tried to do when, I tried to travel on Amtrak. It took us 12 hours to get from Jacksonville to West Palm. So now we can do it in a lot less time. And so it's really exciting, but it's also scary. So, I wonder if there's things we can do. Is Brightline, or is there any thoughts about having Brightline on this committee?
I don't believe we thought about that before, but thank you for bringing it up. We can look into that.
Yeah, I just think it would be important to know how people, bikes, cars are all being impacted. Cooperation, coordination. Because that's what I was thinking when I was traveling, crossing those railroad tracks is like, this is a little scary now that I know that 80 miles per hour of train is coming down quickly, but it's also exciting. So anyways, those are my comments. Anybody else? All right. So Valentina, the next is the liaison report. She can give us the liaison report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. So first item on the liaison report, we have our Vision 2050 Long-Range Transportation Plan. This is a very exciting time since this happens every 5 years when we update the vision or the long-range transportation plan. So we have a transportation survey that we encourage everyone, especially the public, to fill out. We also have a call for projects. So if you'd like your project to be into our long-range transportation plan, please make sure that you contact our long-range transportation coordinator, Nathan George, and also visit our website at palmbeachtpa.org/LRTP. So I believe yesterday it was Walk and Roll to School Day. We participated at this event at the Liberty Park Elementary School at this in Green Acres. This happens every year, and that was the school that was selected for this year. We encourage everyone to walk and roll to school for that day. So, and then here, some pictures of the event. Had a good turnout. So this month is Mobility Week, and that starts October 27th through November 4th to promote alternate modes of transportation. The Palm Beach TPA is collaborating with the city of West Palm Beach to do a Mobility Week event October 28th. So if you're interested in joining us, you can visit our website at palmbeachtpa.org/Mobility Week 2023. And we do also encourage all municipalities to participate during this time to encourage all modes of transportation. And it is also National Pedestrian Safety Month. And with you today, you'll see a flyer that says that nearly 1/4 of pedestrians killed in traffic crashes are over the age of 60. So that's a good reminder to try to encourage safer roads, safer speeds, and alternate modes of transportation during this time. In addition to that, we are encouraging all municipalities to adopt a proclamation for Mobility Week. Does anybody know if your municipality will be adopting a proclamation? I know the city of Palm Beach Gardens just adopted one for this month. Okay.
I don't know of any adopt anything, but we are going to do, I've given some giveaways and some other things.
Okay.
I don't think there's any adoption by the board that I know of.
Okay, thank you. So next we have the Grant Navigator tool, and we've been promoting this a lot to emphasize the fact that there are other grant opportunities available. So the United States Department of Transportation created this tool to sort of make it easier for everyone to try and find these grant opportunities. So you can go to transportation.gov/DOT-navigator. And as you all may be aware, FDOT has a shared use non-motorized Sun Trail program. Solicitations are due December 20th. Applications do open up in October. But if you are interested in applying for Sun Trail funds, the proposed project has to be part of the TPA's list of priority projects. So before applying, please make sure you contact us so that we can amend that in our list of priority projects. And finally, we have our next TPA governing board meeting, October 19th at 9 a.m., both in person and virtual attendance. And that concludes my liaison report.
Okay, thanks, Valentina. The next item is the amendment number 2 to the TPA's 2045 Long-Range Transportation Plan, Cost Feasible Plan, and Andrew Euler, the TPA Deputy Director of Programs, will present this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. So this is going to be the second reading, the final review of the amendment number 2 to the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan. This is a pretty technical presentation. This amendment overall deals with a lot of finances in our plan. So we're currently operating under a 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan that was originally adopted back in 2019. And this sets our vision and our programming for federal and state funds. Thank you. Our federal and state funds towards the next 25 years for transportation products within our county. So with this amendment, our plan was did an administrative modification in January of 2022. For this amendment, we're really doing this for consistency purposes. So we have new revenue sources that came in from the federal government. So that includes carbon reduction funds, RTA funding amounts changed, and then a few other updates for those. We had discretionary grants come in to a few transportation operators. So we reflect those in this amendment. And then we're making it consistent with our current work program, our transportation improvement program for the next 5 years. So when there's cost estimates that are updated on those, we're reflecting those in this plan as well. And then the FDOT strategic intermodal system has had some updates. And that's the main pipeline of capacity products that FDOT has. And so when there's updates, massive updates to those projects, we're trying to incorporate those as well. So there's 2 thresholds. There's the one for amendments. So those are the ones that require public review. And that's what you're seeing today. We also included administrative modifications since there's so many of them. For amendments, it's really if there's like a significant scope change. So if a product went from in our plan being a 6-lane widening to an 8-lane widening, that would require an amendment. If a product advances in the schedule to a different tier, so if it gets advanced from an outer year of like, let's say 20 years away, and now it's going to happen within a tip, that's an advancement in schedule, and we have to reflect that as an amendment. And then the biggest one is cost increases that are greater than 50% and $50 million. Those are pretty big thresholds, but this is a long-range transportation plan. And so that's why you see bigger thresholds for a long-range document. And then, as I mentioned, there's multiple administrative modifications, and we did show them in these documents for transparency. These don't require public review or approval, but we wanted to show the full scope of changes. And this is just a highlight example from the backup for this plan. The plan, really the meat of the long-range transportation plan is the cost feasible list. And the cost feasible list is what products that you can accomplish with the available revenues, the revenues that are available. So there's 3 main cost feasible tables in our LRTP. There's the one that is the FDOT prioritization list. That's the strategic intermodal system and the turnpike. That's the example you see on the screen. We also have a TPA prioritization table, and then we have local and county prioritizations, and that's all local funds in that one. So for an example here, showing administrative modifications in blue and amendments in green, if there was a change, we highlighted those. As I mentioned, there's multiple changes. One example of amendment that we have for the FDOT SIS cost feasible plan is, although it's a small cost that's going into the transportation improvement program, there was a capacity improvement, add left turn lanes at Southern Boulevard and Jog Road. Because it wasn't reflected as a product in the cost feasible plan, we're adding that, and we believe it triggers an amendment. And then the rest were mostly cost updates. Also, when we're doing these sort of changes, we need to maintain a financial constraint, again, meaning that we need to ensure that our revenues match expenditures and that we're not over on that. So we provided that table in the backup as well that shows the updated revenues and expenditures. then lastly, how we've gotten to this point. So this amendment went live for public notice on September 1st. We have a 45-day review period for LRTP amendments. So it's been on the website since then. It was reviewed by the committees and board last month. And then this is the final review by committees. And then the final adoption will happen at the governing board meeting this month. Really, that's all I have for you. There is a lot of changes in the backup. I didn't go through all those in this presentation, but I can be happy to answer any questions on it.
Thanks. Thanks, Andrew. Are there any public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
So with that, do we have any member comments? Oh, Bruce,
Had a question,
sure.
just out of curiosity, what's a managed lane?
Sure. So managed lanes, you'll see a terminology used for a lot of the strategic intermodal system projects. So on I-95 and on the turnpike is typically where you see it. A managed lane can mean a few things. It's a pretty broad term. It can mean express lanes or toll lanes. So it's just managing traffic in a different way. So typically it's with express lanes or, for example, a carpool lane. It can be as I mentioned, a toll lane. Now, when you see managed lanes used for the terminology for the turnpike will not put a toll within a toll. So you're not going to see an express toll lane on the turnpike. But you may see something like that on 95, I believe.
Okay. Fadi,
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one on revenue. I know many states right now, they're charging electric cars a flat fee, annual fee to compensate for not paying gas tax. Is there anything in Florida being planned for that?
That's a good question, Fadi. We'll probably touch on that maybe in our long-range transportation plan, this update for 2050 about that. And what Fadi is referring to is, with the efficiency in vehicles, especially going towards electric, how are we going to make up this difference at the federal and state, and I guess at local level when it comes to fuel taxes, right? So when we have more efficient vehicles, paying less at the gas pump. Our state, I don't know if we've explored alternative revenue sources such like that. I know a few states are now exploring that. As a metropolitan planning organization as ourselves, there's been some discussion about looking at pilots when we talked with our other MPO partners throughout the state. But right now there hasn't been any movement towards that. I don't remember if I've seen anything recently either coming from the state. Have you? Tax increase? Oh, okay. So Brian Rusher with our team said that the governor has proposed an increase on, I guess, the vehicle registration to counteract that. So you'd pay more for vehicle registration.
I think that's probably what Texas and other states have.
Some places are going that way. They're doing a vehicle tax, pretty easy one to administer that way. And then some states are exploring a higher tax at the electric vehicles charging station.
My other question is for State Route 7 and Southern Boulevard improvement. I know we're reviewing right now the additional lane they're proposing, but I think on the table you had some other item, which is this interchange being planned to completely being replaced or something?
Are you referring to any of the Southern Boulevard to see? Yes.
I mean, the first one, adding lanes, is what we're reviewing right now, and I think it's really needed. But I was just wondering, what is the second item? Modify interchange.
Sure. And you won't see any funding in this one. We snipped the outer year for this, but in the backup it shows out to 2045. There was the original, I believe. There's the Southern Boulevard at State Road 7 changes right now. Those intermediate changes, but then there's like a State Road 7 at Southern Boulevard ultimate interchange, I think. And I think that's what you're seeing there.
Is this when they are planning to add maybe additional lane, maybe almost like elevated lanes or something?
Yes. So Southern Boulevard in the short term, you'll see a few of these intersection projects, but long term, and there's a lot of them not showing here because of that outer band there. But Southern Boulevard has a Southern Boulevard master plan and out. With that came a few alternatives that they'll explore long-term. And that would be elevating, it's already it's already a separated grade separation at most of the intersections, but it might go grade separation for all of them along Southern there.
And when is this planned for?
They have not, that was originally, the master plan was done a few years ago. But I don't think I've seen anything coming up in the meantime for like a PD&E on that, but next would be the PD&E.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do we have any other comments or anyone participating remotely? No?
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Samantha.
Yes. So I see there's obviously a change or a difference between the administrative modifications and the amendments. I understand that. Just based on how far out this goes, is it expected that there will be a lot of administrative modifications as costs change? Is that typical?
So, yeah, we went all out with this administrative modification this time around. It's typically not something that we do in outer bands because the ones that are most important are the ones coming up soon. Because, and actually, like for implementation, what happens is, let's say an I-95 interchange project shows a certain long-range transportation plan cost, and then it gets into their transportation improvement program, our first 5-year band, and the cost escalates greatly. That's when we have to really need to trigger an amendment and get that changed. As costs fluctuate in outer bands, they're not as important, I would say, because they're not trying to draw down funds at that time, and we can always just make those changes later. We put a lot of the changes in here already because we got new AFDOT strategic intermodal system updates, so we decided to put those cost estimate changes in here. And there's a lot of them, but we're not looking to do this, 2 times a year regularly.
Right. So it's not like a constant upkeep all the way out to 2045.
Correct.
Updating the costs and things.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? If we have no further discussion, do I have a motion?
I'll move motion to approve.
Okay, Craig, motion.
I second.
Body second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, West Palm, we hear you. The next action item for our committee is the 2024 Transportation Alternatives Program Guidelines and Scoring System. And Valentina, the VSAC liaison, will present this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. So as you all know, this is a very exciting time of the year as our Transportation Alternatives Program opens up. So for today's presentation, I'll be going over the fiscal year 24 Transportation Alternatives Program and just going over the timeline, scoring system, and any proposed upcoming dates. So the Transportation Alternatives Program is a small scale non-motorized program that can fund projects on or off the federal aid roadway system. So typically the type of projects that it can fund, Safe Routes to School, and just any pedestrian and bicycle improvements such as bicycle facilities, pedestrian and bicycle signals, lighting, and just any safety projects. For this fiscal year, we have an estimated of $5.1 million total, with an estimated $1.5 million maximum per project, keeping the same $250,000 reimbursement minimum. So at the bottom of the slide, you'll see a timeline of the program starting from application submittal all the way to funding availability for construction. So the application submittal for this year will be February 16th, 2024. And as a reminder to you all, design is funded locally. So because this is a 3-year program, construction funding will become available July 1st of 2027. So these are some of the proposed program dates that we have for the program. And we'll be kicking the program off as soon as we get approval from our TPA governing board, October 19th, 2023. Following approval from our TPA governing board, we'll be hosting our program application workshop, October 20th, 2023. It will be held at the TPA office and recorded live. However, if you are not able to attend in person, we do have a virtual option, and this is now live, so you are now able to register on our website. And during this time, you'll be able to ask any questions regarding the program, eligibility, anything of that sort, and we'll also be going over the GAP application portal. Next, we have our pre-application meetings, and this is required. If you do not attend these meetings, then you will be ineligible to apply for the program. So I'd like to emphasize that it is required, and you do have to attend within the window of November 6th through 2023 through February 9th, 2024. And we actually did give a little bit more time this year. I believe last year, we had the pre-application meetings up until January. This year, we decided to extend it to February to give you all a little bit more time, because we understand that sometimes things can happen last minute. So during this time, you'll be able to ask any questions to FDOT staff and TPA staff for any eligibility and just be able to show your proposed project. So next, we have the application deadline that is February 16th, 2024 at 5 p.m. And as many of you are aware, the Vision Zero Advisory Committee has the opportunity to score all of the TA applications that we will be receiving for that year. So that's going to happen April 4th, 2024. And over the course of July 2024, that's when we are bringing all of the applications to our committees and board for approval, and then sending it over to FDOT. So for the TA program, if you're not familiar with the TA program, and if this is your first time applying for the TA program, you actually have to go through the FDOT GAP application portal to submit all of the supporting materials and all of the applications. So if this is your first time applying, you will have to create an account with a username and password, and we will be going over the instructions and just more information on how to use the GAP portal on our workshop, October 20th, 2023. So for our TA program, we do have a scoring system, as you all are aware. So for a scoring system, we have three main criteria. So we have a what section, where, and why. And all of this does align with the TPA's goals and objectives and performance measures from our currently adopted 2045 long-range transportation plan. And for the what section, that's really scoring based off of what type of facilities you're proposing. So whether that's pedestrian, bicycle facilities, and the scoring is based off of also the length and the width of the facility. Also for the where, it's where the facility is being proposed. So that's whether it's on the TPA's high injury network or traditionally underserved area, things of that sort. And also why the project is being proposed. So if the project, maybe it's on the municipality's adopted plan, or if it has received any local support, then that's when you'll be able to get points for that. So for this year, we have very few and subtle proposed scoring changes. We updated the sidewalk and path widths, in addition to adding some traffic calming criteria. So now applicants are able to get points for any traffic calming elements that they are proposing for their projects. In addition to points are now being awarded if the project is near any additional destinations. So applicants are not required to score their own applications. I do want to emphasize that it's not required. However, we do encourage all applicants to take a look at our TPA mapping tool. We do have two different mapping tools. The first one that mostly all of you all use, it's on our homepage. This one is actually at the palmbeachtpa.org/TA website. So if you go on that site and you scroll all the way down, and then you'll see a tab that says submit an application, then you'll see the mapping tool. This mapping tool is really for the use of the scoring criteria. So you're going to see shopping layers such as shopping centers, natural trails, things of that sort to help you score your own proposed project, although it's not required. So with that, again, we do have our grant application workshop October 20th, 2023 from 9 to 11 a.m. It is now live. You can register to attend at our website, palmbeachtpa.org/TA, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions if you have any. So with that, I'd like to request a motion to recommend approval of the fiscal year 24 Transportation Alternatives Guidelines and Scoring System.
Thanks, Valentina. Do we have any public comments on this?
No, Madam Chair. For the record, Claudette De Los Santos joined the meeting at 9:18 a.m.
Thank you. David, go to VZAC committee now.
I was curious, what are destinations? What are considered destinations?
So are you asking what are the additional destinations? Or?
For the scoring criteria.
Sure. Yeah, so we added medical services, police station, fire station, and grocery stores.
And what was already included in that?
So if your project was near any multiple trail areas or shopping centers, I believe natural areas, as well as some other things, but we added this to emphasize the fact that there needs to be connectivity to any fire stations, grocery stores, and medical services. So
It was parks included in there too?
what's that?
Parks?
Parks? I can take a look at the scoring criteria, but I believe so.
Says
I believe
regional parks.
it's already on there.
Okay. Thank you.
Regional parks, designated natural areas, or recreation centers.
I forgot to print it out, so I didn't remember what was on there from last year. It just and I mean, that's what people are going to use the trails for. They're definitely going to go to destinations. When I was living in Hilton Head, we had trails that connected everything, and you could pretty much keep your car at home and walk or bike almost anywhere on the entire island. So yeah, destination sounds like a good idea.
Any other comments on the changes proposed? Body,
You mentioned the sidewalk width. Could you explain what changed?
Sure. So our currently adopted scoring system has a criteria of 4 feet width for sidewalks, and that's not ADA compliant. So we wanted to update our scoring system and encourage applicants to apply for projects that are ADA compliant, which is the minimum is 5 feet.
Valentina, do you mind pulling up the value credit sheet with all the changes, just so everybody can see them? One of the questions I had is that it was this year's coming up is 5 million for the TA.
5.1 million.
What has it been in the past historically?
So last year we had a 5.1 million. I believe the year before that was 5 million. But again, I do want to emphasize that this is an estimated amount. It's not, we're not sure of what's going to happen in the future. So it's an estimated amount.
I can clarify too. Last year it was an increase to 5 million, 5.1 million approximately, with the increase in the federal funding through the bipartisan infrastructure law. Prior to that, it was 3 million.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that sticks in my mind that, the responsibility of this committee in making recommendations for money, and it has increased significantly since I've been sitting here. So just, and then like I think last year we didn't have that many projects. So everyone who submitted, I believe, got funded. Is that correct?
We do not know yet because projects are not considered funded until they're formally into the tip. So all of those projects, well, not all of them, but most of them were prioritized into the TPA's list of priority projects. So we don't know yet if they're going to be considered for funding yet.
I guess maybe the terminology, there were enough projects to fill the 5 million, and whether or not they funnel out, but there wasn't a lot of competition from what I recall from last year, which I just want to, bring that up to everybody. So if this is a real opportunity to spread the word and to tell people, do you have projects because that fit this public safety pedestrian, because I think it's an opportunity to get things funded and get things done. So unfortunately, I don't have anything specific other than Sun Trail, just saying. But it's a real opportunity for all of us. The other thing too is I just wanted to, you're adding new destinations, medical services. So the existing destinations that are up there were more consolidated. And so now we're expanding that to include what appears to be, well, grocery stores is very specific, medical, police, and it seems to be more employment places that you're going to visit more often. But I see, this makes perfect sense to me, because as time goes on and we get those initial trails and connections, that this list of destinations could expand even further, so that, like what David was saying, in Hilton Head, everything is connected. So, as time goes on, I think this makes sense for the evolution of this grant. And obviously the traffic calming is a no-brainer as well. I'm going to try to slow everything down a little bit in those high conflict areas. Is there anybody else? Oh, there you are, Samantha.
Thank you. First, I guess I just want to reiterate the addition of the destinations. I think that these necessary services and places are good to include. So I appreciate that. But second, I had a question as it relates to the LI program. Is that on a separate schedule, or is that not applicable for 2024?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
So the TPA there's a presentation yesterday which goes into detail on the state road modifications and the local initiatives program. If you'd like to review that, it's the in-depth answer to the question. So I'll give you the too long didn't read. The TPA has about 100 projects in our list of priority projects. And for those of you who might not be aware, our mission is to collaboratively plan, prioritize, and fund the transportation system. So we're asking the Department of Transportation and the federal government through our attributable funds to give 100 projects funding over the next 5 years in the transportation improvement program. So all of you have a local roadway program. That roadway program has probably inflated in cost in the past few years. So we collectively also have that roadway program through our list of priority projects. Those 100 programs also all increased in cost. The amount has increased to about 400 million for state road modifications of unfunded project needs, and about 42 million for local initiatives. So for this year, the TPA is going to skip a call for projects for local initiatives and for state road modifications because of that unfunded need. It allows us to play a little bit of catch up through our funding programs and the money that's going to be coming through the pipeline this year But because of that, we're only going to be having a transportation alternatives call for projects this year with the estimated available 5.1 million in funding. There are still federal grants that are out there and available through the discretionary funding programs of the FHWA and FDOT's additional funding programs through Safe Routes to Schools. Hopefully we'll have a cycle this year. Highway Safety Improvement Program will have more than likely have another cycle this year. And to Stephanie's point about the TA having just enough money last year to fund all the projects wasn't exactly hyper competitive. Last year, the local roadway safety improvement program through FDOT got one project throughout the entire district, and it was Palm Beach County for traffic signals. So kudos to Palm Beach County for sliding that one in and getting 26 traffic signals improved throughout all of the county. So there are other competitive funding programs out there that we'll share information about, but this year we're going to skip calling for projects on the LI and the SRM program.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Oh, Fadi?
Yeah, one quick clarification. I think for both pedestrian and bicycle facilities, it would be helpful if you can just mention if it's per direction or per mile of road.
What do you
Sometimes you can
mean?
have sidewalk on one side, sometimes you can have it on both sides. The same thing for bike lanes.
Mhm.
Nothing is clear if it's one way or per mile of road.
Okay, so, yeah, if you can scroll up a little bit.
We'll clarify that for the governing board. Thank you, Buddy.
So,
Yep.
if you are proposing a bicycle facility or a pedestrian facility, it depends on the amount of points that you get is based off of the facility width and also the facility length. So you have to calculate in total, whether it's mile one side or half a mile the other side, and you have to total it up and then multiply it by the facility width.
Yep.
Multiply length per direction by factor of
We can add that clarification. It is per side of the road. We'll put that in for the governing board. Thank you,
Yeah.
Buddy. Point.
Okay. Christian?
My comment in regards to the program overview, the checklist, submittal item checklist items. The Village of Wellington we've been running through some difficulties and trying to meet the proof of public outreach and support required for the proposed projects. Just to provide a brief little background, in the past 2 to 3 projects in the past 2 to 3 years, we've been having difficulties with the 25% of the landowners to support projects. For instance, one project that we had proposed a roundabout on one of the projects, and we had a huge opposition. I mean, we held 2 meetings to just to inform the public. I understand as planners, we have to pretty much receive feedback and kind of evaluate the issue at hand. But we had to pull those 2 projects from the grant cycle. And as Madam Chair, I was brought out that it's important for us to bring out these projects, but we're just having difficulties with trying to meet this requirement. So I just wanted to bring up that issue that we've been having.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a really important issue because from a philosophical standpoint, you want to get buy-in. But when you have more suburban areas like, Wellington and Jupiter, it becomes more difficult to understand that the right of way isn't yours and that it's for everyone. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity to look at urban projects differently than suburban projects, or if there's a opportunity to look at it from the percentage of right of way, because we run into those types of things. I mean, it's very natural, when you have a large property, when you have a neighborhood, but I mean, is that something you all could look at for
Yeah,
the future?
we are actually looking into both what Christian brought up and also potentially including context sensitivity into our scoring system. So we're working on that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note, with respect to the public outreach component, you're going to hear it at some point in the project. And you could hear it potentially when you're going after the funding and seeking funding and prioritization, or you can hear it when you've already committed funds in the work program. You have a local funding agreement, which would need to be canceled, and then the project could potentially be canceled from our list of priority projects in through the TA. So I think continuing to work and build on the improvements that you've identified would be important, and maybe more of an incremental approach, especially considering that the TA program might be a more competitive program this year. We could look at things like, well, maybe you don't want a roundabout, but what about crosswalks, and what about expanded sidewalks and enhanced landscaping as incremental steps, as a smaller approach, still hitting the minimum funding amount, but not necessarily going for, the whole the project at once would be another approach. We've had projects canceled in the past, and those have downstream impacts on the funding program for both the TPA and for FDOD. And we don't want to lose that money. We don't want to see it just go to another project that maybe has a cost increase. We would like for the projects to go through and get fully funded, but that's why the component is there. I will say it has been a challenge for even small, half mile, quarter mile bike lane addition projects too. So we're looking at this critically, but for now the requirement should stay, simply because we do have that kind of flux. And we will land in somewhere, but I think it has to be done sensitively, and maybe with our long range transportation plan, we can look at how we address this through context sensitivity and through safety improvements as a high priority first.
Thanks. David?
Just a question, a comment. We did actually, to Stephanie, have an ad hoc committee that looked at possibly scoring urban applications differently than more rural applications, and the board was not receptive to it. So I think we spent a year and a half doing that ad hoc committee. So
Yes, I
that's,
remember.
yeah, that's how that's going to work. So I was curious though, with no LI this year, are we getting extra interest in TA projects? Did more municipalities approach you?
What do you mean more interest?
I mean, we barely had enough projects to cover the money allotment last year. I was kind of hoping we'd have more, maybe some competition, I'm kind of putting it out there.
Yeah, potentially. We don't know who's applying yet. So
I thought maybe they'd approach you already
Yeah.
and, kind of see what sticks.
not yet.
Yeah, all right.
We hear rumors about people
Yeah.
that might come after us, but we
Well,
go,
putting it out there, yeah. If anybody has a good project, yeah.
I'm sure that we're going to have a very busy scoring meeting.
That's it.
Tracy? Thanks, David. Tracy?
I just want to say, I know we'll apply and probably will apply with enough projects to take off 5.1 million if nobody else wants to apply. So
Better use that scoring tool that Valentina talked about. Actually, that's something that if you could, when it's time for us to do our scoring, if you could put that right up front, that would be a real help, because I've done it the old fashioned way and then tried to look everything up, and for those of you who haven't been involved in those, we're going to make it fun this year. We're going to have a good time, and it's all going to be a good team effort, because it's a long day. So put it on your calendar and make sure you're here, because that's what we're here for, is to score these projects. That's one of the biggest things that we do. So last year when we didn't get to do it because we had enough projects, it was good and bad, but I just want to make sure everybody's ready, and it'll be a good thing for us to really think about things regionally. So if we have no other comments, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Body, the motion. Do I have a second?
second.
Tracy Phelps with the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, okay. So now we're on to the informational items. Which. Who's doing that? Oh, Matthew Mesa. Please join us. He's gonna present these items. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Matthew Moss, Planner One with the programs team here. And I'm here to present a really brief, high-level overview of what the urban area boundary and functional classification update process is. So this process is decennial, which is why maybe many of you might not have heard of this process. It's done after the census. Also, if you've been aware with the news, the census has had its processing issues. So this process has been, delayed a little bit, and now it's finally coming to fruition. So there's three really main important parts of this process. The first will be the apportionment plan and metropolitan planning area boundary approvals. There will also be the urban area boundary updates and adjustments, which is input coming from you as well as from FDOT. And we'll get into like an example of that from the 2010 update process. There's also the functional classification update, which is done in tandem with this as they relate to each other. And what this really determines is federal aid eligibility funding. So your surface transportation block grants, highway safety improvement program for roads, bridges, and transit. So this is why it's very important and exciting that you get to be a part of this process at this time. So for the 2010 example, nothing's really changed. So our metropolitan planning area is still Palm Beach County. We serve the entire county. But what I really want to direct your attention to is that for 2010 and for 2020, you'll see there are two different there are two different urban area boundaries. The federal government provides census urban area boundary. This is from the Census Bureau, and it's done on population. And this is really just looking at population changes over the 10 years and drawing out an outline for that. Through this update process, which involves your input, the local municipalities, what FDOT does, because they are the lead agency in this process, is they will smooth this out. So the outline may not include your area, or maybe you might be missing part of your area at the moment. This is done purely on census demography information. Once we kind of translate that to transportation needs that have changed over the 10 years, then we can really work with FDOT to include those areas that are not in the dashed lines at the moment. So just making that distinction, census urban area boundary is just census based. Smooth is including those needs that you may have not been addressed by the census. So it's merging apples and oranges. Now for functional classification, this is related again to federal aid eligibility funding. So as mobility goes up, or as functional classification goes up, mobility increases, accessibility doesn't. As accessibility increases, functional classification goes down and mobility decreases. And so on the right, you'll see how the functional classification is laid out as our roadway hierarchy, and those highlighted in green, just like the text, indicates what federal aid eligibility funding applies to. So that will be your urban collectors that are minor and above, and your rural collectors major and above. And this again relates to design and of the roadways, among other things. So what are the rules? Again, FDOT is the lead agency. They provide the guidance. They coordinate all the reviews and approvals. They update their enterprise system at the end of the process, and they also finalize and submit the documentation to the federal government. We at the TPA will coordinate with the local municipalities for getting input on that 2020 census urban area boundary. Also, we will be looking at the metropolitan planning area boundary update, which we're recommending no changes to, our apportionment plan, which we're also recommending no changes to, the urban area boundary, which again, we will work with you on any smoothing that needs to be done, and the functional classification update, if anything needs to be addressed there. And in regards to the timeline, this is the last item. The next major event right now is going to be for the board, the governing board, to really look at the apportionment plan and metropolitan plan boundary renewals. And with that, I'm done. So if I have any questions I can answer, I'm happy to do that.
Anybody have any questions for Matthew? No, well, one of the comments I have is the census. which I don't know if any of you on the board share this, but I mean, census was done during COVID. And our numbers came out low or lower than expected. So it readjusted things for us and our planning. I don't know how those, I'd like to look at this more, but it was interesting because even now Bieber takes the census numbers and it's like slowly ticking up, but then you notice just from observation that the population seems to have increased more than it's on paper. So I wonder the validity of the basing everything on the 2020 census, given its time frame and what was happening. So has there been anything out there about that? Everybody's just accepted it. And
I will say, Madam Chair, that the drafts that have come out, because currently it's all draft material, because we still have to get input. The drafts have not changed much from 2010. There's been additions to where that growth has occurred. So I think the census has done a pretty good job in addressing those concerns. I will say that FDOT is also taking into consideration those concerns about how COVID has affected development. And I know from some conversations with them that they've made those adjustments themselves in their draft. That should be coming out soon in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be meeting with them to kind of make sure that those initial adjustments have been done and then come to you for soliciting other maybe unaddressed needs. I will say that in the backup, it does say you can provide input directly to FDOT, but FDOT has noted that they prefer if you come to us and we provide the input so we can collect it all and give it to them in one collective package. And we'll have a process for that once they release that draft.
okay. Well, thank you. Anybody else? All right, so the next item are administrative items 4A through 4D, and they're for information only. And there's no staff presentation requested unless somebody requests it. So are there any public comments on any of these items?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right. Well, based on that, it's 10 o'clock. Our next VSAC meeting is scheduled, well, it must be November. We're not having a meeting in November? Oh, so our next meeting is in December. What is the date on that, Ruth?
December 7th.
December 7th. So we'll see you during the holidays after the day of gluttony, and we'll be back then. So enjoy November, and we'll see you and welcome the new members. I'm glad to see law enforcement here. We have needed your support for a really long time in that perspective. So I'm happy to welcome you. So with that, our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank